I think it's pretty simple. If you want to move down to Naples and stick your head in the sand and forget about everything that's going on in the world, you're welcome to do it. But you're not going to make a difference. You're not going to make a change on anything. The biggest thing that I see happening today, you see it especially with youth, but you see it everywhere, is institutions, corporations, they've been infiltrated with this agenda, this way of thinking. And it's become so blatant to the point where it's pretty much taken over. And the reaction, and I don't blame people for this, the reaction is I'm just going to boycott everything and I'm going to disappear. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to go hide. But we're getting to the point now where that's not going to work anymore. As we go through this next year, things here are going to be extraordinary from anything we've ever experienced. What I'm seeing out there right now is that this election period is going to be one of the most chaotic we've ever seen. I mean, we actually have the two lead candidates, the Democrat candidate and the U.S. candidate, are both either on trial for something and these are all, politically motivated. We could say what we want to about either side, but the reality is that they're politically motivated. But they're either on trial or they're facing impeachment. And, things are going to be just very different. And I don't know exactly, what's going to happen. I'm not saying that anything violent has to happen, but I am, I part-time as a history teacher. I have I work with my kids and on homeschooling, and I teach them history. And the things that we're seeing right now, they're not unprecedented. They've happened before. They happened right before the Civil War. They happened right before the Revolutionary War. Some unsettling things happen when you get to the point in politics where you've got certain groups using government agencies. But one of the things that concerns me the most is hearing from people who just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to give up. I'm going to move down to Naples. I'm going to stick my head in the sand and, hopefully this thing will pass over because I'm in an area that, I can live with. The problem with that is that's what's been happening. That's what we've been seeing for the last decade or so. And because of that, what we've seen is, an attack on really good institutions that build fundamental values in kids. And so now when you look at the younger generation as they've come through, you're seeing complete chaos in the streets. There's no values, no moral ground. And a lot of that is because there's been this internal destruction of a lot of organizations that have provided them opportunities, learning opportunities, opportunities to grow into themselves. And I'm not even saying it has to be, politically one way or the other. The problem is that when you take away those experiences for growth and development for them, and then you can't question what happens to society 10 years down the road when everybody's just gone amok. I mean, that's pretty much where we are right now. Everybody's gone amok. There used to be a time in this country when our communities were built off of civic organizations, groups of people, towns, churches, and those organizations created a sense of community. They created a sense of belonging. They created an environment where people wanted to go out and be a part of it. And now, we've handed all of that over to foundations to manage, and we've handed it over to government grant programs to manage. And look where that has taken us. Okay, if you're one of these organizations and you want to get any type of funding whatsoever, if you go to a foundation, you've got to fit certain U.S. agenda or UN agenda in your criteria. And I kid you not, we have a nonprofit, and I've applied for some grants. We never get them because when I get to this point of the process, I have to be honest, right? So they make you have certain UN agendas in there. They make you have certain ESG requirements in there. There are a lot of things that you have to, whether you agree with it or not, you have to comply with if you want to get any of that grant funding. So, the foundations have really taken control of a lot of these civic groups, a lot of these things that in our communities that build and shape our communities. And then we wonder what's happening, right? Because in order for these organizations to continue, they have to go these routes because we're not contributing. And then matters get worse when we say, okay, now we're not going to do anything at all because we don't like the direction this is going. Government grant programs. Just look what happened. When we pushed that safety bill for the firearm safety bill and public safety bill. I forget exactly what it's called off the top of my head right now, and I try and do some of these just talking to the camera. But when that bill was passed, and I did a video on this a while back, it cut funding from programs, educational programs that included archery, a gun shooting. And you know what? I just spent a weekend with kids shooting guns, bows and arrows, mountain biking, riding, fishing. These are the type of activities these kids need. They need to get off their cell phones. These are programs that are teaching kids traditional skills, life skills that are necessary in life for survival, to be prepared, to be independent. And it has cut funding from those programs. Now, in August, about the time when we released that video and I asked people to reach out to their Congress members, there was a congressman who put forward a bill. It's already passed. It passed with all but one vote. Some representative down in Texas voted against it. But it was basically guaranteeing that the government's grants will continue to fund those schools and those programs. The problem is that even if you have that bill out there, the mentality has already been to cut them. And so those that are dispersing the funds may divert more funds in one direction versus the other. It doesn't mean that they're going to get funded the way that they once were. And the attack was on those programs. We don't want people to be independent. We don't want people to be prepared. We don't want people to have life skills that could teach them how to hunt, how to fish, how to process something. I mean, think about it this way. We cannot post a video on YouTube showing you how to process livestock into food. Those are essential skills that we all once had. In some of my friends from some of the reservations, they call it colonization. You know, when you take away the skills and the abilities of your human right to be able to go out and do those things, and you brainwash people away from that, they refer to that as colonization. I mean, it's not a good thing when you take away those learning activities. And I think another part of it falls on the parents, but, you know, not every child is blessed with a great parent who can teach them these things. So these are issues that I look at. And I constantly, you know, I do these as a Man Thinketh because I think, you know, if I can get, you know, some of this information out there to people, maybe it could help with their perspective. I like the comments down below because sometimes it changes my perspective. But something that has just really been unsettling to me lately is the fact that so many people are just going to walk away. They're not going to give it a shot. They're not going to try to make a difference. They're just going to walk away because they don't like the way certain things are going. And that's exactly what they want you to do. That's exactly what is expected of you. So the way that we handle this is that we get ourselves more involved. When there was a lot of misinformation coming out against the agricultural community, we started our nonprofit, Meet My Neighbor Productions, to go out and produce content that we could use to make a social impact, to help people understand more about farming and ranching. And with that program, with just donations from people like you and some sponsorships, we've been able to cover farms and ranches. We started, you know, here in the Southeast. Within a couple years, we've found ourselves traveling across the United States, up into Canada, and these were great opportunities for us to really tell, you know, some stories about farming and ranching that help people understand the importance of these communities, these people, what they're doing for conservation, and that is the truth. That's the truth that a lot of people don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that private landowners actually do a lot for the environment. What they want you to think is that the only way that this could be accomplished is through the government or through organizations funded by the government. But the reality is a lot of it is already being accomplished. A lot of it has been accomplished. And a lot of the things that a lot of those people want wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for a lot of these farmers and ranchers. And I recognize they're not all perfect, right? None of us are perfect. But the point is that a large majority of them are. And those are the stories that we set out to tell. Well, this time I'm going to do something different. Our nonprofit is going to start a new fund. It's called the Rural Youth Development Fund. And I'm asking you guys for your help in getting this thing kicked off. Because what's happened is some of these organizations that have struggled for funding have had to raise prices for kids to participate to the point where it's unaffordable. Nobody can go. And the other thing is, that as they've tried to collect funding from other organizations and they've had to make policy changes, people have left. People have left, which is what they want you to do. They want you to leave. They want you to go away. They want to destroy the programs. So what I'm doing is with this fund is we're going to start off with some local rural communities near us, and then hopefully we can start expanding this thing. We'll do a fundraiser for it periodically here on the channel. But what we want to do is raise several $1,000s so we could take into some of these local organizations. We can say, you know what, we're going to pay the fees of kids to join, so that they can join for free. Or, you tell us what type of equipment you need. You need equipment upgrades. We're gonna help you with some of those equipment upgrades. You guys need an activity to do, we're gonna help you with those activities, because a lot of these rural communities, they don't have a whole lot of kids to begin with, so they don't have the fundraising efforts of the big cities. And there are plenty of programs funding kids in urban areas. This is for, rural youth development, for programs that are developing outdoor skills, agricultural skills, preparedness skills, and we want to help reestablish those groups, because what I see going on out there is not okay. It's not okay, and what we need to do is we need to step up our game and get ourselves back involved. And a lot of us grew up doing these things, and it makes me mad to see a lot of us that have been involved in them say, you know what, I'm just not going to be involved anymore because I don't like the way things are going. Which is, like I said, that's what everybody wants us to do. They want us to walk away. They want these programs to falter. They don't want people to be self-sufficient. They don't want people to build these traditional skills so that when things go awry, they have the skills, the knowledge to do it. They don't want to instill morals and values in people anymore. And so this program is designed to help fund those types of activities. And we're running it through our nonprofit that we don't have any other overhead. And we can make sure that all of those funds are going to those groups. And like I said, as we expand it, hopefully, just like our productions that we've been doing, we'll see this spread and hit more and more communities as we go. So, help us kick this off today, and I'm hoping that we can start to make a difference and we can start to turn the tide. Because I can tell you this, if we don't do this now, and if we don't step it up with taking action for our communities, taking action for our youth, we've got a very bad road ahead of us. And what we're experiencing right now is a decade of decline of these programs. And you can see it. You can see it every day in things that are happening. When you have riots in a city because somebody didn't get a Nintendo. I mean, this is the society we have moved into. And it's because of the destruction of these things. And what they want is for people like you and I to say, oh, I'm just going to go out in the wilderness and pretend like it doesn't exist, let everything blow over, let everybody blow each other up. It's time we get our heads out of the sand, and it's time we do something. And at least, we know that we can't, we're not a big foundation, right? So we can't go out and do this to the extent that they have. But I could tell you something. Every kid that you can help out to get into these programs, every program you can help to get the right equipment, the right tools to work with the kids, every child that you impact, that you give that ability to, that you give those resources to, is going to help us in the future. It's going to help us change the future. And in my opinion, they're the only ones that are going to be left anyway. So let's get on this today, guys. And I know that there are a lot of things going on in the world, and some of it, I'm trying to figure out how to speak freely on. But I will have more As a Man Thinketh is coming out even as we have these other videos coming out. So stay tuned. Be sure to hit the bell so you know when we do put a video out. And hopefully over the next few days, we'll have a lot of great content for you mixed in with some of the Meet My Neighbor Productions content of filming the bison documentary. That documentary, as I've said before, part of the reason why it's important is because when we have an entire group of people that are attacking, eating meat or whether or not these ruminants are good for our environment, what I'm hoping is that by going out and we tell the truth. I've had some comments saying, are you going to talk about the destruction of the animal? I am, but I'm not a Ken Burns. I'm not just going to tell you that story. I'm going to tell you the whole story. And the whole story is that there has been a massive effort to reestablish bison populations. And it's not just conservation groups, government, it is indigenous groups, it is ranchers, it is a whole body of people who have worked together. And without all of those elements, which nobody's going to talk about, but without all of those elements working together, we wouldn't have what we have today. And it reestablishes the importance of having, these large managed lands with livestock on them. And bison aren't really considered livestock, although they kind of are, kind of aren't. But they're what they can do. You can also do a majority of, not all, but a good portion of, in more populated areas with cows, with sheep. And so we're trying to help people see that and build through it. And this has been a great production that we've been able to build, and we've been able to do that because you all helped us get this process going. So this is a new program within the nonprofit that we're doing, and I'd like to see this grow too. I'd like to see us bring in a few $1,000s to start it off and get it going, and then we'll see how it develops, and we'll give you guys updates on who we're helping and how that's working out. And I'm hoping this will turn into another great program for our nonprofit side of things, and the Nyasa TV's philanthropy, so to speak, of supporting it. And this is what we've kind of missed out on, because we've left it up to foundations and governments to fund what should have been handled privately in the first place. And if it had remained private, if people had continued to support the things that they believe in, then we wouldn't have seen so many of these groups just get wrecked and thrashed apart. But because I know we all have things going on, and I know the economy kind of stinks right now, unless you're reading the Bidenomics book that comes out every couple of weeks. It's full of fake numbers. The economy's pretty weak right now, but we're not going to change that if we don't start investing a little bit in our future. So that's what today's rant's all about. I want to see us start getting our heads out of the sand. And if it's not this, find a way to get back out there and get involved. I agree. If it's a for-profit company that's doing something that is that's wrong, then boycott them. Stop spending your money there. But if these are organizations and groups that have always had to rely on the community, and the community stopped funding them, and then they're trying to get resources these other ways, and you've got these big pushes from the foundations for certain dialogue, a certain direction. Instead of putting your hands up in the air, jump back in there and help take it back. Because those are the organizations, the civic communities that America was built off of. And we need to reestablish those. We need to get them back. We need to make them strong again. Got a phone call. So stick with me, and I'll be back on here Wednesday.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Should I drop any flyers off in Pittsburgh at the library?
I would, because it's for homeschool kids. We're trying to give them an opportunity to do something during the daytime.
Right.
Anybody in the county.